been a crazy few weeks. For those of you who haven't been following along, I made a video a few weeks ago from Brighton saying that it would be my dream to move to London, that I couldn't afford it. And literally that week I got a dream job opportunity here in London, so we moved. And I never thought that that would happen, especially how quickly everything all transpired. So you'd think that, getting the job to be in London would be the hard part, but oh my god, no. Finding an apartment in London was by far the most challenging thing I have been through during my few years of living abroad. And I've lived and gotten apartments in China and Vietnam and in the Czech Republic, places where I'm not a citizen and I don't speak the local language. So honestly, I thought finding an apartment as a citizen here and a native English speaker here would be no problem. But I was seriously wrong, because there's a housing crisis in London, which basically means it's a landlord's market, not a renter's market. So, you'll see an apartment posted and within an hour it's taken. There were so many times I got an email about a new listing and I would call within an hour to try to set up a viewing and someone had already put a deposit down on it. And I was just getting frustrated. I was just so confused because I was like, there's no way that they've even had enough time to view the apartment first, let alone, they're just putting deposits down. So once you're actually lucky enough to view an apartment, you get all excited, but then there's a crazy bidding war that happens after, which I'll get more into later. So overall, it's a process that requires so much time and effort. You have to be constantly looking, ready to go view an apartment at a moment's notice, and be willing to pay more than you originally wanted to in a lot of cases. And the landlord is not willing to budge on price or contract terms that they want, because they'll probably find someone who will agree to their terms super fast if you don't want to. So you kind of have no power. I've been equally dreading making this video and excited about making it because, I'm dreading reliving that horrible experience that it was, but excited to help out people who might be considering moving to London so they can learn from my mistakes and have a smoother transition. So first, let's take a look at where you'll actually look for apartments. The three main sites I'd recommend are Zoopla, Rightmove, and OpenRent. Zoopla and Rightmove are typically agency companies posting about the apartments that they manage. And there are seriously hundreds posted every day. So I'd recommend downloading the apps for your phone and creating an account so you can just, consistently be scrolling throughout the day, and then you can save the ones that you do like and are thinking about reaching out to the landlords. OpenRent doesn't have as many posted as the other two, but it's all apartment owners directly renting out their apartments, so no agency. And I think there are definitely pros and cons to that depending on who your landlord is. But as you're going through the three sites, you're gonna want to filter your search, of course, based on your budget, your expectations for your apartment, like, how many bedrooms, bathrooms, things that you're looking for, and especially the borough or neighborhood. So since I had just moved here and I knew nothing about any of the boroughs, I had to do some serious research. I knew that I had to be in the office 2 days a week, so I knew that I wanted my commute to be as short as possible, but I still wanted to be as central as possible. So I was predominantly looking in the West London area, and because I did have a general area I was looking in, I would then, if I found an apartment I really liked, I would research that specific borough before reaching out to the agency to set up a viewing. And what I found about London, based on doing my research for apartment hunting and just living here so far, is that yes, you can get a feel for each borough and look up, crime stats and stuff online, but within each borough, it could be like 2 beautiful clean streets and then the next is the complete opposite. And then it goes back to clean and then meh. So, I found it really odd because in every city there, there's always gonna be dangerous parts or dirty parts or parts that maybe you don't really want to live in. But usually it's like a specific area, or since they call them boroughs here, maybe an entire borough to avoid. But for a lot of boroughs, there are parts within each that are amazing and beautiful and parts that are just meh. So like, for example, I had friends specifically tell me to not live in the Camden borough because of how dangerous it is. And yes, I looked it up. It had all these stats online about it having the highest crime rates out of all the boroughs in London and all that. And I was shocked because I love Camden Market. I've been there several times. I've walked around the area quite a bit and found it so lovely. So, maybe it's different at night, or maybe just specific parts of the borough are dangerous or you shouldn't live there. I'm not really sure. So if you know why this is true or if it's absolutely not true, please comment down below so we can give everyone the most accurate information. But yeah, it definitely is important to do your research on what area you want to be in and then pick a few specific boroughs, but it is absolutely really essential to get a feel when you actually go to your viewings. So like I said, once you find an apartment you like on one of the sites I mentioned, you will reach out to an agent and set up a viewing. And I highly, highly recommend calling agents directly and not submitting the email or message box thing that pops up on Zoopla and Rightmove, because I don't think an agent ever messaged me back when I sent them a message on there. So I was only ever able to set up viewings if I actually called them and it actually got things moving. So that was an obstacle on its own. And if you're moving from abroad like me, it might be an obstacle for you too, because I only bought a data package when I got here, which means it does not include any minutes. So every phone call I made was costing me money, which was super annoying. So I ended up, ditching the original plan I got, getting a new one that included minutes, but either way, I was wasting money, which is annoying. And pro tip, if you do want to use OpenRent and contact landlords directly, it will only allow you to do so with a UK plus 44 number. So make sure you get one before you start looking if that's the route that you want to go. We didn't have one, so it kind of eliminated that option for us, which is unfortunate. Another thing about viewings here is that yes, sometimes agents will accommodate to you and meet you, whatever day and time that you're available. But a lot of times it's really similar to an open house that we'd have back in the States if you're trying to, buy a home. They'll say, we're showing the apartment this day between these hours, and then you can only book a viewing slot during those times. And if you can't make it, then you don't get to view it. So the entire rental process here is very similar to the home buying process back home, which I'll get more into later. But anyways, once you have the viewing set up, I highly recommend you get to your viewings early to explore the neighborhood. Every viewing I went to, the apartment itself looked exactly like the pictures and how I kind of expected it to look, but exploring the neighborhood is what actually made the decision on the place if I wanted it or not. So walk around, see how clean it is, see if you feel safe. Those would be the main things to look for in my opinion. And then after that, it's just, personal preference. Is there a big grocery store nearby? Are there lots of restaurants and bars? Is there a park? Easy access to public transportation. Whatever is important to you is what you should be looking for. All of those things were super important to me, so I'm so lucky that I found a place surrounded by restaurants, right next to a Tesco superstore and a beautiful park, and surrounded by so many transport options within a 10-minute walk. And every day since moving here, I'll go on walks and I'll just be so happy about my location. So in my opinion, the location should be equally as important as the apartment itself. So get there early, walk around, explore, and see if you feel like you'd be happy coming home to this area every day. So after you go to the viewing, if you like the apartment, it's time to put in an offer. And this is the process that was completely different from back in the States. So back home, you just apply and say, yes, I want this apartment for however many months. Then they just check your credit score and approve you or not. I remember getting our apartment in Austin, Texas. We were approved in less than 5 minutes. We were just standing down at the reception desk, like we had just finished viewing the apartment and we're applying online. And it just happened so fast. Like got the email that we were approved before we had even left the building. But here it's similar to putting in an offer to buying a house back home. So there's an offer form that you fill out, your names, your jobs, your salaries, length of contract that you like, if you want a break clause or not, which I had no idea what that was. It's essentially a way to break your contract without penalty. So you could say, I want a 2-year contract with a break clause after 1 year. So basically after that 1 year, you can leave without the penalty of breaking the contract, which I don't really fully understand why landlords would want that. For us as renters, it's great because we can leave after that 1 year or whatever the break clause is with no penalty. But if we do decide to stay for the full 2 years, they can't raise the rent after 1 year, if that makes sense. So I feel like it's great if you can get the break clause as a renter, but not sure how it benefits the landlord. But please let me know if I'm missing something down in the comments below. In the offer letter, you'll also write down anything you'd like to be fixed before moving in. You can also request certain furniture items. I'm not sure if the landlord will agree to or not, but you can. And then you put in your offer or bid on the place, which I found so crazy because back in the States, if you advertise an apartment for rent for $1,500 a month, that's what it costs. But here, the advertised price is the starting price for a bidding war, essentially. So the first few places we put bids on, we got beat out on the price and also the length of contract. The landlord wanted 2 years with no break clause, which I just wasn't ready to commit to. So I quickly realized that it's literally a game. And instead of writing the offer that I wanted, I started just asking the agents, what should I write on this offer to get the landlord to accept? Like, they're obviously looking for something specific in terms of price, in terms of length of contract, and I'm pretty sure that's the only reason I ended up getting the place that I'm currently in, because I basically just told the agent, tell me what to write. I don't want to lose another apartment. I'm sick of putting in all these offers. And she helped me. So what happens after the offer? Like I mentioned before, the real estate market in London is insane. Apartments go so fast. So usually if you put in an offer, you'll know within a few hours, or especially by the end of the day, if they accept, deny, or counter your offer. So that is the good thing. At least you don't have to wait long. If you get denied, you can just start looking right away again. But if they do accept your offer, you need to provide your right to rent. So since I'm a citizen, I just show my UK passport and I'm good. But if you're not a citizen, this is actually a relatively new concept introduced within the last few years. So basically, you'd need to have already submitted your payment and your documents for your visa and have gone to your biometrics appointment, which is getting like your face scanned, fingerprints, all that kind of stuff. Then when you log into your visa portal, there is a right to rent code that you can share with the landlord showing proof that you're staying here legally. Or the landlord can call the home office and check on your right to rent status themselves. So whichever way they want to do it. As an American, you can stay in the UK for 6 months without needing a visa. So my agent said it used to be very common to just rent them apartments while they're here, you know, visa free. But now landlords aren't legally allowed to do that apparently. So that's something that's a little bit newer, and as an American is something that you'd have to tackle. Overall, checking the right to rent process, if you're on a visa, you know, not a citizen, it can take about 3 to 5-ish business days. Once you get approved on your right to rent, next up is sending the landlord your holding deposit via bank transfer. So once the holding deposit is sent, they will officially take the apartment off the market and all the websites so no one else can inquire about it. Then you'll set up a time to get the keys and pay the rest of the deposit, which is typically right around 1 month's rent. Ours is a little bit more than 1 month's rent. And then you also have to pay first month's rent on top of that. So once all the payments have gone through, they will give you your keys and you can officially have your apartment. So now what? The first thing I'd recommend is, as soon as you know you're getting accepted and have a move-in date, get your Wi-Fi. I don't know if it was just me or if it was the time of year that I was moving in, but I checked 4 different Wi-Fi companies, and 2 weeks from my move-in date was the earliest I could get someone to set up my Wi-Fi, which is crazy, especially when you work from home and you really need Wi-Fi to do your job. So I'd make that appointment as soon as possible. So hopefully you don't have to go too many days without Wi-Fi. Next, we have your bills, and this is something that the agency can help you with. You're gonna need a water, a gas, and an electric account, and those are all separate. Or you might do your electricity a bit differently like we do. And this was the same thing that we actually did in our apartment in Brighton, so I was already used to it. But we have this little stick and you take it to the post office, you top up electricity on it, but you can only use cash. So let's say you just go in there with a £20 bill, you ask them to top up £20 worth of electricity on this little stick. Then you come home and go to your electrical box and plug in the stick, and it gives you more electricity, which at first in Brighton, I was like, what year are we in? This is so inconvenient. I just want to log on and pay something with my card. But I've actually grown to like it because yes, it is a little bit inconvenient to get out, go get cash, walk over to the post office to do this, but it's so much easier to track how much we're spending on electricity, and I feel like I'm more in control. And lastly, ask your agent or landlord about the trash situation. For our building, they're super strict about what kind of trash bags you can use, and then separating the recycling very specifically. And if you break any of the rules, you get fined £200, which is crazy. So just be sure you're aware of all the trash rules and regulations so you can abide by them. Once you have all the logistical stuff out of the way, it's time for the fun part of decorating and furnishing. But if you're not from here like me, you might not know where to get everything. When we moved into our place in Austin, I furnished pretty much the entire thing from Facebook Marketplace because I was trying to save money, and then basically a few other things from Amazon. But here it's not really ideal to buy a used couch, sofa, TV, any big item from someone on Facebook Marketplace because you don't have a car to pick it up. So now you have to pay for a moving service or a van rental, schedule pickup, drop-off times, and just becomes a huge headache and adds on to the cost. So what I recommend first, if you are on a budget like me, visit charity shops. We call them thrift stores back home. If you put into Google Maps British Heart Foundation furniture or British Heart Foundation home, those are the ones that will actually have furniture pieces, not just normal British Heart Foundations. So it's obviously a hit or miss because it's donation based, but I have a few friends who all got their couches there for great prices, like only £250 for an L couch that has storage underneath and a pull-out sofa bed. So I spent an entire month going to these charity shops, one a day after work, and they close at 6, I get off at 5, I race over there, and they're all like minimum 30 to 40 minutes away, so I'm like barely getting there in time before they close. And it was just exhausting. I didn't find any couches I liked, so after a month I gave up and I bought my couch that I'm now sitting on Amazon. But you know, it's all about luck, so you might get lucky and find something there, and you'll save yourself a ton of money, and they'll deliver it to you for super cheap. Overall, I've pretty much gotten all my big furniture items from Amazon, like my TV stand, coffee table, desk chairs, my sofa, like I just said, just because it's easier and free delivery. But if you're coming from the US, just know that Amazon is a lot pricier here and doesn't have as many options. My mom kept trying to help me out and sending me all these like beautiful L couches on the US Amazon that were like $300 US, but they wouldn't be on the UK Amazon. And then the cheapest decent quality L couch I found, which is this one, is £550, which is like $650 US. So that's like double what I wanted to spend or what I could have spent back home. So just keep that in mind. It's easy, but more expensive than you're probably used to. They also have IKEA, which, you know, obviously a solid choice always. Again, more expensive than I was expecting. I found Amazon to be a little bit cheaper than most of the IKEA things that I wanted. And once you're onto the decorating stage, I can't recommend Primark enough. Primark is just my all-time favorite store for everything. It's just so cheap, has such cute stuff. It's the perfect place for home decor, you know, little blankets, plants, baskets, picture frames, just all the things that like make your home cute. And it definitely won't break the bank. It's also a great place for towels, bedding, a duvet, pillows, like all those types of things. So I cannot recommend it enough. It does have some furniture items sometimes, like you just have to keep looking, but usually they're small things like a little coffee table or a coat rack, not a couch or a bed. And there's also TK Maxx here, which is the same thing as TJ Maxx back home, which does have some super cute home decorations and home decor, but again, I have found that it is more expensive than TJ Maxx usually is back home, so just keep that in mind. But I do think it's definitely worth just popping in there and checking that out. So if I have any advice to give to you if you're moving to London and finding an apartment, you need to have a lot of time devoted to scrolling online to find apartments, calling agents, setting up viewings. It's really almost a full-time job, and you need to be quick and on top of it to beat out other people. I moved in August, which the agent did tell me is the worst time of the year to move. So maybe if you did move in the winter, it would be a little bit easier. And obviously, the lower your budget, like me, the harder and more competitive it is gonna be to try to get an apartment, since London is super expensive. So if you have a really high budget, I'm sure you won't have any of these issues because you can just outbid everyone. But if you're more like me, you gotta be ready for a longer process just because you don't have the money to be outbidding people. And the last piece of advice, as sad as it is, don't fall in love with a place right away. I know it's hard, but I kept seeing a place, falling in love, picturing how I was gonna furnish and decorate it, and then my offer would get outbid and I'd be crushed, and then I'd have to repeat the process. So as long as it ticks all your boxes, put in an offer, don't get attached, keep looking for apartments until your offer is officially approved. We actually had a situation quite similar to this, which was the apartment that we got right before this apartment. I was just texting the agent via WhatsApp, and obviously that was very informal, just very casual. I just kept asking, you know, like, do you think we're gonna get approved? Because I don't wanna keep coming, I was in Brighton at the time, I don't wanna keep taking the train to come out to London and view all these apartments if I'm gonna get this one. So he kept like, oh yes, you're gonna get it, yes, you're gonna get it, don't worry about it, don't worry about it. I wasn't worried, and I stopped looking, and I was so excited because I really liked that apartment. And then the owner decided to let a family friend move in instead. So I was crushed, obviously, and I wasted a few days of not looking because I was sure that I was gonna get that apartment. So learn from my mistakes, don't stop looking, keep going, keep hustling until you are officially approved and get that in writing. So if you're on the fence about moving to London or the UK in general, let me try to convince you by sharing the reasons why I moved here and the reasons why I think you should move here too.